Welcome to the Grow Podcast. It is a season of love. I'm Ashley, and this is Wendy. Hi, Wendy. How are you today?
I am doing great. Last night we had a huge community event here in Fayetteville, and it just really warmed my heart.
Yeah, I mean, you told me a little bit about the details of it, and it sounds like a amazing time. I would love to come and see you in person. But today we're going to talk about self-care, and all the different ways that we can contribute to caring for ourselves. And I don't know about you, but I think love of self, and we might have mentioned it on other episodes, but care of self is the big thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually really vital to having a happy and a life, a happy life, and a life where you feel kind of in sync with yourself. If you don't take care of yourself in really every way, there's all different ways you can do that. Eventually it will catch up with you. I know it has with me at different points in my life. And, you know, I mentioned the event last night, and it kind of plays in here a little bit because I realized, you know, I need to rest mostly today and tomorrow just to kind of let my body catch up with itself after, you know, being up for a really long time and doing a lot of walking and just being on for such a long period of time. And I think sometimes people don't realize or take the time when it's needed.
Yeah, I think, well, mostly because our society doesn't really value those breaks, that rest time for ourselves. So I don't know about you, but I feel like there's a lot of pressure to keep going, to keep doing things. Like if you're not doing anything, quote unquote, productive, then are you really actually doing anything at all? And that is my self-talk. It's like, okay, Ash, what should you be doing right now? Because sitting here is not doing. And so I constantly have to battle against that talk in order to say, hey, Ash, it's okay if you're resting right now. It's okay if you're recuperating from a big event, you know, and especially when we're talking about stages and lights and lots of people, like those are very, very like energy draining experiences. They're adrenaline, you know, is a source of adrenaline in the moment, but after that adrenaline wears out, like you're kind of in the negative as far as energy is concerned. So,
Yeah,
um,
true. And you know what we're talking about is physical self-care, right? So, you know, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating the things that are healthy for your body? Because that can be different for everyone, right? With different sensitivities, allergies, likes and dislikes. So nutrition, rest, sleep, exercise, feeding your head, you know, more positive material, you know, all of that is physical self care. And it takes time and energy. It's like another job, you
yeah.
know, that we weren't taught that we have. I,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, physical care of the body, like, no, absolutely not. Many of us don't even know the parts of our body. Like, we can't even identify various parts of our body. So, I mean, I wasn't taught how to take care of myself. I think a lot of what I learned, the physical aspect of myself, a lot of what I've learned has been on the job just because I'm a nurse and I had to take care of other human beings. So I just learned slowly how to take care of myself. But I also still don't feel like I prioritized myself as much. And it wasn't until I started to recognize the impact of, let's say, sleep on not only your physical body, but your spiritual body, your mental body, you know, all of those areas as well. So, you know, the things that we do for our physical body transcend just the physical outcome. Like there are other parts of us that benefit from us taking that care of self too.
right. I absolutely agree. I think, you know, with that, when we're taking care of ourselves, sometimes if you're in a helping profession, so to speak, like nursing or occupational therapy or, whatever it happens to be, we learn to take care of others and prioritize others. I think as women, we're kind of taught to prioritize, the family, the children, parents, before ourselves. And it's really flawed, because if we don't take care of all the parts of ourselves, especially the physical body, eventually it's just going to break down. It needs certain elements to keep running smoothly and properly. So I can totally relate to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do too, because I mean, it's just way easier. It's way easier to take care of somebody else. You know, if somebody else needs to rest, you can look at the physical signs on them. But like, do we really pay attention to the physical signs on ourselves? Like dark spots and, blurred vision and, just symptoms that are saying that our body is no longer functioning at its balanced state. It's declining. And are you willing to do anything about it? And are you willing to commit to yourself to do it? Um,
Well, and that's part of self love, really committing to yourself first. And, you know, boundaries come in here, right?
yeah,
So, if you're not able to hold good boundaries and understand that you need to care for yourself, eventually you're going to be giving way more than you're taking in, and that balance just doesn't work.
yeah. And, and that's another huge area that I know I struggle with, boundary setting. And even recognizing what my boundaries are, what I can tolerate, what I cannot tolerate, because for many reasons, like we might put up boundaries in this area, which probably don't really need to be there. And then, there are other areas where energy is just kind of coming in and going out, and you're still leaving yourself tapped out.
That's very true. And we're going to talk about emotional intelligence next when we come back. Wendy Jo here from the Grow podcast. So, we're talking about self care today and how important it is to spend some time with yourself. I think self care can be a misnomer sometimes because we think of it as just, having some special treats, getting our nails done, going and getting a facial. And while those are really important and can be self-care, we're also talking about how you treat yourself. Do you speak to yourself with love? Do you treat yourself with love? Are you making sure that you're eating properly? Are you drinking enough water? Are you spending time doing activities that you really enjoy? Self-care is all of these things and more. So please take care of yourself.
Have you ever thought about consuming cannabis but was worried about smoking it or eating it? Or maybe you just want to give your lungs a break, or you had a really bad edible experience. As a healthcare professional, I am very conscious of the multiple ways of dosing your medicine. One of the ways that you can consume cannabis is through a transdermal patch. This is not often talked about. The cool thing about transdermal is that there is a 97% bioavailability to this type of consumption method. Now, the problem is finding a trusted resource to facilitate your consumption. And guess what? I found a product that I support. It's called Synergy Skinworks. It's a cannabis delivery system that works effortlessly since the medicine goes where the blood flows. Patch on, peace out.
And we're back. We're talking about self-care today in an episode of the Season of Love. So, emotional intelligence. What is that? Maybe you can give your definition.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even look it up before we came on here, but emotional intelligence for me is just the awareness of your emotions at any given time. So it's not necessarily because I think intelligence is kind of misleading. Like you have to be smart about your emotions. And it's like, no, you just have to find them. Like, those pictures they give you in kindergarten is a smiley face, it's a frown face. Like, just which emotion is it that's showing up right now?
Mhm.
And if it's like one of those layered emotions where you're like, well, it isn't happy, it isn't sad. well, can we take it down to the next level and get to maybe happy, sad, mad? Like, and we talked a lot about that in improv. Like every emotion is sourced in the same for emotions. Either you're happy, you're sad, you're mad, or you're afraid. And so, and the more complex, almost like a color chart, is the blending of different emotions that kind of mask those basic emotions in our day-to-day lives. And so that's why people get confused.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's my thought on emotional intelligence. How about you?
Yeah, so I like that, and I think that that's an important thing to point out so people understand their emotions. I think in addition to that, it's also, how how to respond in different situations that will how you can, you know, state how you feel without hurting yourself, right? Or being able to, I'm thinking about different situations where people just don't know how to respond, right? And we're not really taught that, growing up. It was, always more of like a lean into really what amounts to toxic positivity, like say you're sorry and just move on, everything's fine, it's all
Yeah.
fine, right? But we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so at least when I was growing up, that's kind of the way it was. Like we just didn't talk about things. And so you don't learn how to respond to people. What if someone is crying and upset? What's the best way to handle that? Or there's lots of different situations that I just feel like if someone said, hey, well, here's another example. Like, let's say you're not interested in doing something, but your friends are all interested and want to do it, and how do you respond to them in an emotionally intelligent way? It's okay to say, I'm not interested in that, so I'm not going. You
Yeah.
know, um, there's lots of different situations that I just feel like we're not taught about, and then people don't know how to respond.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and I think the key in that statement is that a lot of us don't know how to respond because we're taught how to respond in certain situations by our environment. Like people showed us that when X happens, that I'm supposed to respond this way, whether it's good or in a angry way or whatever. Somebody else kind of showed that, even if it doesn't necessarily match our emotions in that in that moment,
Mhm.
you know. And
Well, yeah,
so,
and you're pointing out that people don't know which emotion they're in,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So you don't know which emotion you're in, and then you're not sure how to respond. It's just it doesn't make for a satisfying and understanding situation.
yeah, for sure. And for both people involved, you yourself, because you can't satisfy your own needs. If you're mad or frustrated about something and you can't figure out or articulate that you're frustrated just because you have a big frustrating response, most likely somebody will receive that and be like, "Oh, well, I don't even want to be around you because you just seem frustrated."
Hmm.
Right? As opposed to maybe being able to say, you know what, sir, you're really frustrating me today because you have on that blue shirt. Right. And so maybe that person might be willing to say, you know what, I might change my shirt. Or you then now know that you have a choice to either walk away or continue to be present and deal with the frustration that you feel. And so that's kind of like how I map out dealing with emotional intelligence is like what in this situation is causing you to feel anything? Like, do you feel something right now? And if the answer is yes, what do you feel? And if we can get down to those four basic emotions, how can we address those emotions? And then now we know how we have a better way to engage more intentionally And
And really what you're talking about is emotional regulation, which, to be able to stop for a moment, check in, what am I feeling? How do I want to respond?
Mhm.
What I'm seeing in the world is that people are losing or have lost their ability to self regulate their emotions. And they're just get really angry, really upset, frustrated, like you said, and just cannot regulate to be able to think about it for a moment and respond. It really makes for, very difficult situations. We see it over and over, on social media, on television, like people are just not regulating.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, but you know what the crazy thing is about social media? They like that's how it's been designed. It's been designed to polarize people's ideas and thoughts and to like press up against the things that are the exact opposite of what you believe. And it doesn't matter what it is that you believe in, that, social media literally exploits that fear response in us because we want to be right. We want to know that our experience, the world around us is correct. And so if they can present something that combats that, then now you're upset and now you want to scroll even more. You have more adrenaline to keep scrolling, to stay in tune, to find some more stuff to make you even more upset, the whole thing. So it's so interesting.
It really is. I think you're right. I think, I don't know. I haven't seen a report recently about the amount of time people spend on social media, but I'm willing to bet that it has played a huge role in people's decreased ability to self-regulate and understand their emotions. I don't know if people can step back from it. I feel like we're all in so deep now.
Well, yeah,
Like I think stepping away from it can be really healthy. And I know people that have taken like a 30-day break and then frequently they end up not going back.
yeah,
So it's like breaking, it's all, I do feel like it can be an addiction. And so, we get that dopamine hit when how many people liked my post, all that. So I do think you're right that social media has contributed to the decrease in ability to regulate and understand our emotions and understand each other instead of, it's created more division. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And we're social beings. Like one of the things that we were designed to do is to connect with each other.
Mhm.
And it's also a form of self-care. So, a lot of us need time disconnected for sure,
Mhm.
but we also need time to like physically connect with other people in our personal environment. So you and I were doing this virtually, and I think there is a version of connection that's very, very powerful. But imagine how much more powerful it could be if our physical bodies could be in the same room.
Yes, and I'm hoping that's going to happen in the future because I think you're right. It definitely, we've got something powerful already. Imagine if we're in the same room, feel our vibrations and and I think in life, for people, they're often spending more time virtually and not connected together, and how do we make time for that? Time management is another thing that is about self care, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Because our entire existence is wrapped in time. So you spend a certain amount of time doing your work, you spend a certain amount of time going to sleep, like everything. You have to be here by a certain time. You're going to meet people at certain times, things like that. So we're always bound by the construct of time and everything that we do. And so, how do we best manage it? So that way it serves us as opposed to it being almost against us. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh my God, I'm always running out of time. That's what it feels like, right? It's like, oh my God. And, but having that mindset in relation to time doesn't serve our well being. Taking a more control over our time, I think, is something worth speaking about noting the reality that we still have to go to work. So, are you hitting the snooze button in the morning before you have to get up and go to work? Are you taking a second to deep breathe, maybe before you get in the car, while you're driving where you're going or whatever? On your lunch break, are you actually taking one? I know for nurses, we not taking no break. What's a break for what?
No, we don't really. I know. I completely agree. All of those questions are really important to ask ourselves, and definitely a part of self care and self love. All of those elements. So we'll be right back in a moment, and we're going to talk about spiritual self care.
What does self-care mean for you? Oh, really, what does it mean for you? Is it the traditional pedicure, or is it your brunch on Sundays? Like, self-care includes mind, body, spirit, and emotional bodies, even the financial body. And it's about expansion. How can we expand the consciousness of this physical body? Like, offering yourself love is the ultimate form of self-care. Take some time to think about the 5 main love languages. How do you really want to treat yourself? Let me know in the comments.
Hey there, Wendy Love Edge here. I'm so excited because I have Edge Coaching and Consulting LLC, where I've brought together all of my education and experiences so that I can help you have the life that you want. I'm an intuitive life coach, Osho Zen card reader. I perform brain spotting services to help heal trauma, inner child work, Reiki, and so much more. So if you're interested, check it out, edgecoachingandconsulting.com, and you can book your services right on the website.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The High Align Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
And we're back. We're talking about self-care today in the season of love. And so spiritual self-care, what are your thoughts about that? What do you think that entails?
So when I talk about the whole person, I talk about the emotional, which we talked about, mental, physical, and then also spiritual. And it's one area where a lot of the activities that we do can contribute to your spiritual well-being, but it does require some perspective shift in recognizing when you are choosing to care for your spiritual being. And so the example I think I gave earlier was about sleep. Being well rested, yes, serves you. You won't have your dark spots. You'll have the mental clarity. You'll be able to regulate emotionally, but it also helps you to replenish your aura around you. And that supports your spiritual self, that protective layer. And so being intentional about how you choose to care for your spiritual well-being, similar to the emotional one, is that you have to get to know spirit.
Wow, what a great point. That's so true. And whatever that means to you, spirit, you could be in a particular religion or not. We're all children of God, I believe. Doesn't matter what path you want to take, but it's good to have a path and a personal relationship with spirit. Sometimes I think the practices of religion can be very soothing, especially if it's something you grew up in. It reminds you of things from childhood, happy times, maybe not. Maybe you won't want to do that. But sometimes I think it can give you that connection and reminder, or just find your own path to spirit. Try some new things, some meditation, or just sitting with yourself, focusing on your breathing, see what happens. Find a deck of tarot cards or a pendulum or whatever you're drawn to. It doesn't matter, whatever feels good to you. You're nurturing your spiritual being, and in turn, I feel you're nurturing your mental well-being as well.
How do you know when your spiritual self is full? Do you have an indicator at all?
Yeah, those are tools which kind of for me. Certain tools help bring me to the path. Um, I can feel, the presence. I feel connected to my spirit guide when I'm really nurturing my spiritual self. I can hear her voice, and I feel just really connected. So I know that I'm nurturing my spiritual self. When I'm not feeling that way, it's definitely a completely different vibe that I feel day to day. I kind of feel supported when I feel connected, when I'm
Yeah.
nurturing my spiritual self, and I don't feel that if I veer away from it. How about you?
Yeah, so it's like a overall warmth, and I'm more energized when I know that when I am connected to my spirit self. I find that when my energy levels like start to kind of go down, usually it's because I haven't invested that time to be intentional about nourishing my spiritual self, and through tools or just meditation or just quiet or whatever. I find and I find that I'm not as expansive. So when dealing with people, I tend to want to constrict. Like that's kind of my happy place. Let me just be with me right now while I'm trying to figure out what's going on with myself. So when I feel good, like almost like the sun, like radiating energy, I can sense that. I can feel that warmth.
Right. Yeah, I can relate to that. I think, and I feel like my mental health starts to suffer. Like people, I'm out of that sync with, I really want to live in unconditional love, and that's my true nature. I feel like it's all of our true nature. Um, but when I'm not so connected, I feel myself being a little more judgmental or, less tolerant of people. And then I know that I have not been nurturing, and I might be more anxious. I might even go down a depression rabbit hole. And if I just reconnect and nurture that spiritual self, it's okay. It's a much different experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because when you're connected, you're always feeling protected, like you're always feeling loved, you're always feeling, lifted. So whenever you're dealing with those situations that maybe you don't want to deal with, you can always find like that silver lining, like, you
Right.
know, and so, and I think that's why self-love is so important, spiritual self-love, but full self-love, embodying love at all times just makes life just way more bearable when you're going through it. Because, I mean, sometimes life is just hard.
It's true. It's going to have its ebbs and flows with times of abundance, times of scarcity, times of great love and enjoyment, and, times where you feel down. And that's just the cycle. And it's really important to learn how to ride out the parts of the cycle that are on the lower vibration. And it really takes that self care to be able to do that, I feel.
Yes, building resilience. That's what they talk about.
Yes. Well, this has been fantastic. And we're going to go more deeply into some of these subjects in some future podcasts. But I hope this overview was really helpful. I feel like it was helpful to me. Thank you for your thoughts.
Same here, man. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.